Is there a correlation between video game induced violence and lack of family time? This question has bugged me for many years. Do video games actually make people violent? Now, in my opinion, no, they do not make people violent. I believe that people who play violent video games and have some sort of mental disorder like ADHD or autism do not have that off switch where they do not know the difference between real life and violent video games. The research into violent video games and if they actually do make someone violent has been going on for decades. And because violent video games have become such a necessity in a teenager's life, they also almost become prone to not really being fazed by violence, like as in killing someone or seeing someone being shot. Now for some pros and cons of violent video games. Pro number 1. Playing violent video games can cause more aggression, bullying and fighting. Pro number 2. There is a broad consensus among medical associations, pediatrician, parents and researchers that violent video games increases aggressive behaviour. Simulating violence such as shooting guns and hand-to-hand combat in video games can cause real-life violent behaviour. Many perpetrators of mass shootings play violent video games. Violent video games can desensitize players to real-life violence. By inhabiting violent characters in video games, children are more likely to imitate the behaviour of those characters and have difficulty digesting reality from fantasy. Now for some cons. Sales of violent video games have significantly increased, while violent juvenile crime rates have significantly decreased. Studies claiming a causal link between video game violence and real life violence have flawed. The US Supreme Court ruled out that violent video games do not cause young to act aggressively. Playing violent video games does not cause kids to commit mass shootings. Violent video games allow players to release their stress and anger in the game, leading to less real-world aggression. Violent video game players know the difference between virtual violence in the context of the game and appropriate behaviour in the real world. The Bobo doll experiment. What is this? Well, notably, experiment measured the children's behaviour after seeing the model get rewarded, get punished, or experience no consequences for beating up the Bobo doll. It was a study on children where, after watching an adult model act aggressively towards a Bobo doll, the experiments are empirical to approaches to test Boundreau's social learning theory. The social learning theory claims that people learn through observing, imitating and modelling. It shows that people not only learn by being rewarded or punished, but they can also learn from watching somebody else being rewarded or punished. These experiments are important because they sparked many more studies on the effects of the observational learning. The studies not only give us new data, this data has practical implications, e.g. how children can be influenced from watching violent media. Considering it in the 1961s, they didn't have many boundaries of what they could experiment. Today, the Bobo doll experiment was very unethical and should not have been practiced on children, because who knows what after effects it could have had on them and what their effects on family could have. Now, for my own research, is there a correlation between violent video game induced violence and lack of family time? I asked 5 people, 3 students, 1 teacher and 1
Hi, my name's Jake Bohr. I'm a customer service assistant at Morrison's and I'm 19 years old.
Charlie Farmer, 18 and student at Tavistock College.
Josh, I'm 17 and I'm a full-time student.
Tom Newton, Tavistock College and 17.
My name is Simon Hunter. I'm a media studies teacher and I'm 32 years old.
How close are you to your parents?
Pretty close to parents, yeah. Especially my mum and dad, yeah, I love them, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say we have a good relationship.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'd say yeah. I'd say we're really close.
Nah.
Please elaborate on that.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Fairly close.
Why did I ask this question? I asked this question to surprise them, to see what their actual response was. How much time do you spend with them each day?
Each day, well, I go to work, so whenever I come home, pretty much, When you say like spend time with them, like, or like just me and them.
Talk to them.
Oh, most days. Most days, I see
Right.
them, yeah.
Okay.
The day, I mean, they're at work, you know, from like 8 until like, you know, 6 o'clock, and I mean, I get home around like 4 o'clock, so probably about, what's that? About 5 hours a day.
I see him every day.
Yeah.
Well, I see my mum every day. My dad every other day.
2-3 hours a day, I'd say.
By asking this question, I can actually see if they spend a lot of time with them, because if they don't, it's linking into my hypothesis of is there a lack of family time? Do you play violent video games?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Now I asked them, do they play violent video games? In my opinion, if I asked people that didn't play violent video games, they wouldn't understand like the questions I would ask them after this. What violent video games?
Battlefield 1, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Alien, Isolation, Dying Light, God of War is really violent, Dante's Inferno, Fallout 3, New Vegas. Plenty of games I play that are violent. The majority of them are.
No.
Grand Theft Auto 5, Battlefield 1, you know, like Call of Duty, that sort of stuff.
Yep.
All of them. No.
Mainly Call of Duty, Battlefield, and Grand Theft Auto.
As we found out, everyone seems to play violent video games. GTA is probably the most popular one there, so why doesn't it make any of them violent? What are your views on violent video games?
I think it's a bit of a myth when people say that violent video games can like trigger like violent tendencies in later life. I think that violent video games all they do is desensitize the viewer, not make them able to do it. Rather, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for example, I don't know, it's more they'll be less surprised to like, I don't know, an explosion or someone dying than someone who hasn't played a video game, which there is someone dying in it.
I think that there is nothing wrong with them. I think that they are a good way to relieve stress. So sometimes you are stressed or you're angry, you want to take it out on something, and I think violent video games is a good way of doing that.
Mm-hmm. They're great fun. Yeah, I enjoy them. I play them. They help me relax.
They're enjoyable as long as it's in moderate goes.
Video games, I played them for a long time. I think they are a form of artwork, and I don't personally subscribe to the idea that it will encourage violence in the actual play.
Okay. Now, after finding out their views on violent video games, how come some people use the excuse that they got influenced by violent video games to actually commit a crime? Alright, between the ages of 12 and 15, did you ever play violent video games?
Yes.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I think I started playing my first Call of Duty when I was about 14.
Yes.
Yeah.
Depends on the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas like Halo is more futuristic, like it can happen. Whereas GTA is more like closer to home.
Necessarily think that violent video games will encourage violence in youngsters. However, I do understand the need for regulation, more in terms of them seeing upsetting things, you know, things that would, you know, have other psychological effects on them. I don't necessarily think. I think most kids by that age have got, by the kind of like 14 age, they've got the kind of morality, I would hope, where they know that like, no, this is a bad thing. But in the same way, I think sometimes seeing blood, gore, horror kind of stuff at too young an age, that can cause, you know, nightmares, anxiety, that kind of thing.
Why did I ask this question? Well, I was curious because this next question should summarise it. After playing them, did you ever feel influenced to commit a crime, like killing someone? Or
No,
anything like
no,
that?
nothing like that.
Personally, I don't, because I know for a fact that what I have just been playing is a video game, and that's where it ends. You know, like it has no reflection on my life after I've turned the Xbox off.
No.
I can't say I did.
No.
I think with certain people, yes. And that's the thing. I think that's why this debate is in existence. I think 99% of gamers can acknowledge that like this is a game. I'm having fun. When the game's off, it's off. But I think because of people with certain educational needs or mental disabilities, for that 1% of gamers who don't necessarily know when to switch off, be it because of, I don't know, Asperger's, autism, learning difficulties of some sort, there are some people who might think that those behaviours are okay in the real world.
Have I been looking in the wrong area? Maybe. Maybe I should have been looking at violent video game induced violence and mental disorders instead of lack of family time.
For playing a violent video game, did your behaviour become more aggressive towards people?
No, I've never been an aggressive person at all. No, I've never been in a fight at all.
No, my behaviour didn't become aggressive, but I would say that at that age I started to play it a little bit more than what I should have. And I guess that was not a very good thing, especially at the age that I was playing an 18 game. I can really say it
I
was.
think it chilled me out.
Yeah.
Because they're always like a good way to let off steam.
Yeah.
There we are. No one actually felt the need to go and commit a crime after playing a violent video game.
Do you believe that children aged 12 to 15 should be monitored when playing over 18 games?
When you say monitored, like what, like by the parents?
Yes, like how much time they spend on them, if they see like...
How much time they spend, definitely, because when you're 12, that's what you want to do, isn't it? When you're a bit older, you can monitor, because you've got the responsibility to monitor yourself. When you're young, all you want to do is play the PS4, the games console, don't you? So, yeah, to an extent, but not like, you know what I mean?
Alright, that's it, thank you.
Cheers.
I think, yes, I agree, and although it never changed me personally, I know that everyone's different and people read things different ways, people read different media texts different ways, people take in information different ways, and the way that that society is changing now, children are becoming more and more prone to more violent and more gory things that they actually shouldn't be viewing, and I think that they should be monitored because it could influence more and more crimes in the future.
Just depends on what the kid's like. If they're mentally stable, then I feel like it's not going to affect their behaviour. If they're not, then I guess it could influence them, and then they probably should be monitored.
Yeah, I think there's some boundaries of like whether you can play. It all depends on how they've been raised, if anything, but they should be.
After doing my own research, I found out that lack of family time should be excluded from this hypothesis. Why is that? Well, because out of the people I asked, everyone said they had good communication with their family and no one actually felt influenced to commit a crime after playing it. But mental disorders should be put into the hypothesis. Why is that? Well, this is because people with autism, ADHD might not know how to switch off and then commit a crime in the real world. Thank you.